The case in question is Learning Resources, Inc. versus Trump. An oral argument started with John Sauer, Solicitor General for the United States.
Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the Court. On April 2nd, President Trump determined that our exploding trade deficits had brought us to the brink of an economic and national security catastrophe. He further pronounced that the traffic of fentanyl and other opioids into our country has created a public health crisis, taking hundreds of thousands of American lives.
President Trump determined that the nation's trade deficit had brought us to the brink of collapse. He also decided that the trafficking in fentanyl has created a public health crisis. This is the justification for his enacting tariffs under IEEPA, which states, any authority granted to the President by Section 1702 of this title may be exercised to deal with any unusual and extraordinary threat which has its source in whole or substantially part outside the United States to the national security, foreign policy, or economy of the United States if the President declares a national emergency with respect to such threat. However, since the trade deficits have existed for decades, what has made them suddenly unusual and extraordinary? After all, for there to be an emergency, there must be sudden, unforeseen happening which requires action to correct or to protect lives and or property. And to invoke IEEPA, the threat must be substantially or in whole from outside the United States. Yet foreign commerce, by definition, must include participants within the United States.
President Trump has declared that these emergencies are country-killing and not sustainable, that they threaten the bedrock of our national and economic security, and that fixing them will make America a strong, financially viable, and respected country again.
President Trump declares these emergencies are country-killing and not sustainable, but not that they are an unusual or extraordinary, which is necessary to invoke IEEPA. Neither are they sudden or unforeseen to constitute an emergency.
Due to IEEPA tariffs, President Trump has negotiated agreements worth trillions of dollars with major trading partners, including most recently China. Unwinding those agreements, he warns, would expose us to ruthless trade retaliation by far more aggressive countries and drive America from strength to failure with ruinous economic and national security consequences.
Just because a president has negotiated agreements doesn't mean he had the legal authority to impose the tariffs he used to initiate the negotiations. Furthermore, since Congress is vested with the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations, these actions by the president are unconstitutional. And since none of the agreements included a treaty, they have no legal force within the United States.
In Dames and Moore against Regan, this court held that IEEPA's sweeping and unqualified language grants the president's actions the strongest presumption of validity and the widest latitude of judicial interpretation. Yet plaintiffs argue that tariffs, IEEPA's least blunt and most nimble tool, are virtually the only tool that Congress did not grant the president to deal with foreign emergencies. That is wrong. The phrase regulate importation plainly embraces tariffs, which are among the most traditional and direct methods of regulating importation. And plaintiffs concede that IEEPA authorizes quotas and other tariff equivalents.
Except nowhere else that I'm aware of is the power to regulate understood to include the power to tax, but I'll talk more about that later.
The major questions doctrine does not apply here. IEEPA confers major powers to address major problems on the president, who is perhaps the most major actor in the realm of foreign affairs. And the non-delegation doctrine casts no doubt on IEEPA because Congress may assign the president broad authority regarding the conduct of foreign affairs, or he enjoys his own inherent Article II powers. I welcome the court's questions.
Enter the question of the major questions doctrine, which the Cornell Legal Information Institute defines as the major questions doctrine is a structural principle of administrative law that restricts federal agencies from interpreting statutes and assessing broad policymaking powers of great economic or political significance without a clear congressional mandate. So the second question the court has to answer is whether or not the president imposing a tariff is a broad policymaking power or not.